gotta say a couple things, hey, hey. Ain't gotta say a couple things about it. Gotta say a couple things, hey, hey. Ain't gotta say a couple things about it. Yeah, check
I like that. So I would like to thank you guys for coming out to another rendition of Village Vibe. Snap it up. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. First topic of the day is going to be on affirmative action. Give y'all a quick little rundown of what happened. If you guys don't know. So basically, the affirmative action bill that just got overturned by the Supreme Court, colleges and universities may no longer factor race into admission when selecting students to attend their schools. So I know this affects a lot of the black and brown students, you know what I'm saying, around here. So I would like to have a quick little solution-oriented conversations about that. So the first question of the day is going to be, how do you feel overturning the affirmative action bill will affect black and brown students in the future? I feel that it is a bit of a band-aid over a real problem of with our educational system. It should be a lot more investing into our schools from an elementary, middle school, high school level, because a lot of times those schools are very underfunded. So we do not have the same opportunities as the white students who has more money or more legacy to get into those schools. So a lot of times they use affirmative action as like a quick fix on a bigger problem. But if we actually solved it from the root and gave us the same opportunities as everyone else, we wouldn't even need affirmative action because we will all be at the same level. But because we don't have the same opportunities, they give us this. It's kind of like the same thing as giving us Juneteenth as a holiday off. You know what I'm saying? It's like, okay, I'm gonna give y'all that little breadcrumb. Y'all should stop whining and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Calm down. So I think honestly, they really need to fix the problem at its root. And that's the problem with really America overall, is that they don't want to address the real root of the problem with us as a people. You know what I'm saying?
They've been breaking up families since the 70s. What makes you think they're not going to break up our school systems? What makes you think they're not going to create issues for one black man to be against another black man? So this is something that is very detrimental because as black women, it seems like we can't have nothing positive. And black men, they always seem to be dragged down. So our school systems where our kids, or if you have kids, where they start at and they're innocent and they continue to grow up, and then you try to put them in a black school and it's like they have no place. But other people and other people of color, other races, they seem to be dynamic, and one, they stick to each other, they link with each other, but it's like us, we just don't, and it's confusing to me.
Well, so a lot of people may not know this, but white women are actually the main beneficiaries of affirmative action. So I have a little radical answer. It may not be, maybe a little touchy, but I say, like, it's the white women's turn. Like, black women have been in the front of, civil rights and activism for years and have been the last group of people to benefit from them. So with white women being the number one affected group from this, I say when they have the little white tears, let them fall, let them be at the front, and we're going to sit this one out and watch how it play.
I just want to say something real quick, not too much on the affirmative action, but just one of the people who overturned it is Clarence Thomas, who is a black man. And I just want to say all skin folk ain't kinfolk. That's it. So let's just, let's try to really elect people, not just because they black, but because they have a message, because they really on what they talk about.
Next question is going to be, do you think affirmative action actually helps or hinders black students? Black and brown students, you did. I also think there's a narrative that affirmative action, they basically just grab any black student and just put them into these schools, even if they're not qualified. But the thing is, you still have to be qualified to get into these Ivy League schools. And so the narrative that is like, they're just grabbing black kids, and this is actually going to be more beneficial for black students, because I heard people say that certain black students in these Ivy League schools were actually at the bottom of their class. And if they were to go to like a UNC Charlotte or a Chapel Hill or Colorado University or something, they would be at the top of those classes. But they're saying that because of affirmative action, they're misplaced. But I don't believe that is actually true.
A lot of PWIs are like benefiting off black people. Like when you look at sports, which bring in billions of dollars to these institutes. What about Central? What about A&T? You know, all of these black schools, you know, could benefit from it. So I think that if we take that talent, if we take the students who are excelling in, like, you know, law programs or whatever you're doing, if you take those students and then you develop and invest in your black schools, your HBCUs, we'll see growth in that, which also affects the community around it. So now you are literally affecting the community. So I think it all just depends on our mindset going forward with that being overturned.
I completely agree with what he's saying. I'm a Howard grad, so HBCU pride. And I actually did go to basically Ivy League. I went to Georgetown Medical School, so both backgrounds. And how you were mentioning, like, oh, those students probably would be at the bottom of the class. That's the opposite. I was the top of my class at Georgetown too. So what you are saying, I completely resonate with. We definitely should pour more into our HBCUs, and not just Howard, because I know we get a lot of money and a lot of recognition. So it should definitely go to the smaller HBCUs too. But what you're saying, I completely agree with.
It's just a question that I just have for everybody. Like, are we scared to be in our blackness? Like, have we really thought about what that would be like? Because I know I completely agree with putting and pouring into HBCUs, but we also have to understand that history repeats itself. So if we do go down a train where we're being black and powerful and we've taken back our communities and we're advancing as we should be, will we lose it? Because as we know, bombing of Tulsa, a lot of the man-made, rivers and lakes that we have today is black bodies under these big bodies of water. So if we are going to, pour back into our own communities, what are we going to do as individuals and as a whole to make sure that history does not repeat itself?
One thing we need to do is making sure that we're investing back into our HBCUs, because if we aren't able to go to these Ivy League schools, what thing is going to happen is they're going to start investing in programs and degrees that are going to be based on these AIs, chat GBT, that's going to be on the come up. And they're going to have a lot of opportunities to get these new jobs, but we're not going to be able to have access to them because they're not going to be able to let us into these schools. They're only going to let in a few of these students in. So we're going to have a lot of more black kids going to HBCUs. However, we need to make sure that HBCUs is going to be equipped to where we can compete with these students as well. You know what I'm saying? So I definitely agree with what you guys were saying. So I think that is very important that we invest back into our community, invest back into our HBCUs, but we also hold them accountable to make sure they're preparing our students. You did. Yeah.
Breland. And I think that us as a society and more so as a minority community should stop trying to. Well, education is a good foundation, but we all know that like black people and minority people of color are creative beyond the societal norms. Like, we're very creative, and we should stop trying to just like fit into the box of society. Like, in this day and age in 2023, like, we can create anything. Like, we can do anything with social media, with the internet. You can do anything. It doesn't have to be like, all right, this person beside me not supporting me, so I ain't gonna do it. You can do anything with the internet. Just create something and just do it. So I don't think we should focus on like, all right, these schools aren't letting me in anymore, so my life is over. It don't mean anything. Like, just use your creative brain and just create something and start your own business. If you don't want to, if you can't fit into that school or the school dynamic, it's okay. Like, it's 2023. Like, there's so much that you can do. That's all I got.
How many people, so not a lot of people in here obviously know anyone who's been affected by it. Because of that, how many of y'all actually care whether affirmative action is or isn't a thing?
I care.
A lot of y'all don't know anyone who's been affected. So, and obviously there's a thing where if it doesn't touch you personally, you don't give a damn. So for the people who actually do care, why do you care that it's a thing? Kids.
If I ever decide to have kids, in my life, I would want my kids to be proud and black and to have something. It's like nowadays it's like they're belittling, like they're just nicking. It's like we can't have nothing. Like we can't have nothing to ourselves. We can't have our men. We can't have like our culture. We can't have nothing. We have to share. And now it's our education that's at stake now. And that's a problem.
I guess I got a question for everybody. How many people in here actually know someone whose life was affected by affirmative action? Raise your hand, nod, something. Nobody. Okay. Okay.
Like with the overturn of it, or like just in general?
In general, like they actually got a job from it, or they were affected because they lost their job from it.
Well, my mom, they did a lawsuit for Toyota. I think so there's a big Toyota plant out there, and they had actually sued them because they were tossing out Africans, not even looking at their record, but just noticing that they were black. So she ended up getting like a settlement amongst the action law. So, and I'm on the opposite end of that, so I'm a recruiter and so within my organization, the diversified director of operations role, because it was largely like and like our own leaders and everything recognize that. So it's like the whole affirmative action laws are written very weird when it comes to employment, because it's meant to help, but then you can't really like help because you can't discriminate at all. So it's like, yes, we want to diversify, but we also can't just pick someone because they're Hispanic or black or whatever. Or we can't not pick someone because they're white. So it's kind of like backdoor policies. But at the end of the day, like organizations, most of them are trying to diversify, and we do try to do as much as we can. But then it's like there can be that white person that's like, oh, they hired that person just because they're black, you know, or a token Hispanic person. So it's like the law was written in a way where it's meant to help, but it also hinders us so much from doing a lot of different stuff. And I also recruit in Brazil. In Brazil, they literally will not consider someone if they're not a minority. So we have specific roles where we're like, only minorities will be reviewed. And they can do that in Brazil. We can't do that here. We would get a lawsuit here. So it's different. I think, you know, looking at the Supreme Court and everything and its recent decisions on it, it's going to be interesting how it goes from education to employment, because I'm sure that's next. But at the end of the day, that is very top down. So we can only affect it as much as we can, you know, like on an individual basis. But companies really are trying to hire like more diverse people. They want that. We like search for that. But it's hard from that perspective.